Welcome to the Stewards Enquiry on the Winners' Enclosure. I'm pleased to be joined by Martin Dixon. And Martin, we've had a lot of racing over the weekend, but obviously the Irish Grand National was the highlight yesterday, and it sprung a huge surprise, 150 to 1 at Freewheelin Dylan. I'm very much doubting that was on your radar.
You'd be right. It wasn't. No, I can't claim to have backed a winner there with Freewheelin Dylan, but it was a great story, wasn't it? 150 to 1 shot, small yard. Jockey that we don't see riding at many of the big meetings. Ricky Doyle, and he had I think he only lost his claim shortly after riding this horse to win at Kilbeggan back in the summer. And Kilbeggan's a track where he'd done extremely well through his career, and he'd won one of the regional nationals there and things like that. But the level of form realistically didn't look on a par with such as a latest exhibition, for instance. But he was down at the foot of the weights, and obviously he put up a career best under a really astute ride as well. He went from the front, raced with real enthusiasm and zest, and barely put a foot wrong in terms of his jumping through the race, and it proved very difficult to get into the Irish National, didn't it? They were running on ground that wasn't as testing as maybe you can sometimes get in these races in the spring, and it seemed to be an advantage to be handy and up there, and he went and did that all the way through the race. And like I say, you couldn't knock his performance at all, and a great story with the smaller yard and connections associated with him.
Yeah, once he gets rolling, this horse, he's actually quite difficult to peg back, and that's what happened. As you mentioned the story, the trainer's father won this race as a jockey X amount of years ago. They trained just down the road, 4 miles away. So a local success, good for all. Regards flat trainers booting in the winners, it's not a surprise that Mark Johnston is firing them out everywhere across the country, and 4 of them winning on the card at Musselburgh, including the first and third in their big race on Saturday, the Queen's Cup.
Yeah, exactly. He's hit the ground running very much, hasn't he? And we've only seen a couple of 2-year-olds from Mark Johnston so far, but his first winner at the weekend at Musselburgh was one of his 2-year-olds. No doubt we'll see more and more of the young horses coming out from the Johnston yard over the coming weeks. And I think the other thing would be that association that's now established with Ben Curtis has really hit the ground running, hasn't it? I mean, Ben's got that sort of go forward positive style of riding that you would associate with a lot of the Mark Johnston horses, and it just does seem to fit really well, that combination of Curtis riding the Johnston horses. We've seen it a little bit through the all-weather season as they've been teaming up more and more, that it has worked really well. And obviously, as a partnership, it's already proving to be very fruitful indeed. And I think Mark's on 7 winners already in April. He's going to have more chances, as we're speaking on Thursday. He's got more and more chances across the cards this afternoon. He had a cross-card double yesterday as well, one at Kempton, one at Redcar. So look, left, right and centre, he's got ammunition, hasn't he? And it's an amazing operation if you ever lucky enough to go up there. I once went up about 10-15 years ago in my younger days, and it's just amazing to see the way that they run the ship. Everything just works like a well-oiled machine, really. So that's the story behind the success, I think, that they've built up over the years.
Yeah, talking of other trainers that have sort of hit the season rolling, John and Thady Gosden, that's not a surprise. 36% strike rate, a big yard, lots of ammunition, and they've hit it rolling across the world, haven't they? But that's not a surprise. George Bowie's done well, hasn't he? In just his second season, is it? I think. I think
it's his second full season, isn't it?
Yeah, third, if you can, exactly.
Yeah,
he's had, I think, some quite fancy 2-year-old runners, hasn't he? I think all of them have gone off favourite so far, but he's again operating at 35%. So there's a few trainers to keep on side at the moment. Have you spotted anyone slightly under the radar?
I didn't realise George's was as high as that, but he is certainly a trainer to follow, isn't he? We've seen it over the last really 6 months since racing came back, that he had his 2-year-olds ready to go last season. He got real sort of steady progress out of his horses. He's had that horse on the all-weather, Cartum, that won 6 or 7 races, that he really improved out of all recognition, George Bowie, and he's already off the mark with his 2-year-olds as well. So that was good to see. much less in the spotlight. But Eric Alston's a trainer to just keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. He'll only have a small team of horses, Eric, but he's got a couple of entries over the next few days coming up, and he has had 2 winners already in the last sort of 10 days that have been coming back for the season, and he's had them ready, he's had them fit and ready to go. And it is something I think at this time of year that really can't be underestimated for punters, to look at the stables that have their horses having had plenty of work underneath them going into the races, and they're fit enough to show their form at the first time of asking. And all the yards will operate differently in that regard. But Eric Alston would be one I'd give a positive to mention to, that you might see on Mondays and Tuesdays at the Baths and Brightons and things like that. But if the horses are coming back from breaks, the evidence is suggesting that he's at least got them fit to do themselves justice.
Yeah, and he loves to sort of fire in a winner at Chester's May meeting, doesn't he? One of those sprinters from a good draw. So no, he's a shrewd cookie and a lovely man as well. Well, let's now move on and talk about the classic picture, because once the flat season starts, it's bang, it's going. And it's 3 weeks away. There's been one horse of Aidan O'Brien's that's been really well back, Santa Barbara, in the 1,000 guineas. She's raced just once. She's by Camelot. So on pedigree, and she won a maiden over a mile, you'd think she's going to need a little bit further. But seemingly the reports from home are that she's been showing plenty of speed.
Yeah, and I think we saw her make a pretty sparkling debut last season at the Curragh. And if we look at Aidan O'Brien's record over the years with his 2-year-olds, then the general theme is that they're not absolutely sharp and tuned up to the max first time out to show all that they've got necessarily. You know, we expect the O'Brien horses to improve with racing and with experience. So when a horse bursts onto the scene in the way that Santa Barbara did it with that Curragh maiden win last year, it really does make you sit up and take notice. She won that race 2.5 lengths. She tanked her way through it on the bridle. And whereas we see a lot of the O'Brien newcomers sort of miss the break, learn their job, finish off well, she was very different. She just looked like she could be out of the top draw. Obviously, like all of the Ballydoyle horses, she's got an outstanding pedigree to back it up. And you can't completely ignore the vibes, can you, when it comes from a stable with such a powerhouse stable as Aidan O'Brien's. So, yeah, I'd be look, I don't think I could be recommending backing Santa Barbara at this moment in time, a few weeks away from the race, when all of the money's already come from it for her in the anti-post market. But I certainly would view her as a likely huge improver, and potentially a very likely winner of the 1,000 guineas, given the impression that she created last season.
Yeah, and money often does speak volumes, doesn't it? When they've obviously sort of taken them maybe away for a gallop and they start to get a bit of a feel, especially when you look at the guineas pictures on both fronts. I mean, if it's not Aidan, it's Joseph. They've got about the top 5 in the market, particularly in the 2,000 guineas. Continuing on the 1,000, Indigo Girl and Pretty Gorgeous, I suppose, are quite closely matched. They were first and second in the Fillies Mile. Alcohol free. Stamina doubts? Would you say? Cheveley Park winner?
Yeah, she won the Cheveley Park. I think I thought all last season that she was sprinter. She's very enthusiastic, and I would be unsure about her staying the trip, as you say. Pretty Gorgeous and Indigo Girl, in theory, offer the value, don't they? I'm just looking at the market now. You around a 9-4, maybe top price 5-2 for Santa Barbara, which does seem very, very skinny from a form perspective about a once race maiden winner. But like I say, we can't ignore those vibes. I think Pretty Gorgeous is a filly that I liked all the way through last season. I think she's got the size and the physique to really train on well and progress her form, or at least maintain the standard that she was at last season, would make her competitive in 1,000 guineas anyway. But it is the 1,000 guineas in particular, with Santa Barbara having this huge reputation and dominating the market in a way that you wouldn't have expected on form. I think it does make it a little bit tricky. At this moment in time, a few weeks away from the race, we want a little bit more evidence, wait for the trials and get a bit more of a feel for the race before I would be playing a punting hand in there. But there is one in the 2,000 guineas that I do like, Emma, and that's a horse. You've mentioned Joseph O'Brien already having such a strong hand with his flat team, and Thunder Moon is a horse that I loved last season. He finished 3rd in the Dewhurst on the back of winning the National Stakes, but to me, went through the Dewhurst like the best horse in the race for a long way. Now, he was only having the 3rd start of his career. He got stuck a little bit deep on the track out in the centre, and was a little bit marooned, but he moved as powerfully as anything through the race. And I just felt like he would come back a better, stronger horse as a 3-year-old next season. And we'd be able to see him just sort of finish off his race a little bit better in a Guineas than he was able to in the Dewhurst at the back end of last season. So I'm expecting further improvement from Thunder Moon. As I say, he's still very lightly raced, and for him to do what he did and win the National Stakes second time up in the style that he did, when he actually beat Wembley and St Mark's Basilica, who then he was behind in the Dewhurst, I think that we'll see him turn those tables again at Newmarket next month, and I think he'll be a really big player in the 2000.
It's slightly more open, isn't it, the 2000? You've got the top 5 in the betting that are O'Brien train. Admittedly, one of them's Joseph, but the other 4 are Aidens. And you know, as you say, with trials and everything else, a lot will change over the course of the next couple of weeks, and there'll be a plunge for one of them, which will make it apparent which is the first choice from the team. I'd have thought. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, Aiden's got 3 of the first 5 in the market, hasn't he? St Mark's Basilica, Wembley, they both ran really well in the Dewhurst. I think Wembley could develop into a potential Derby horse. You know, he looked a strong stayer last season. I know they never tried him up to a mile, but you know, he could be a horse that ends up there. Any of them could, in truth, couldn't they? You know, we see them time and again that Aidan O'Brien's horses start off in the Guineas and then move up to the 1.5 miles in the Derby. Battleground is the horse that's currently favourite for the race, I think, with most bookmakers. He went over to America and ran a big race out there at the Breeders' Cup after winning at Royal Ascot. So there's any number of horses with potential in there. But like I say, I thought that Thunder Moon in particular, every time I saw him last year, including when he got beaten in the Guineas, I thought he just oozed class, and I think there'll be a lot more to come from him this year. I think he's a proper miler as well, whereas some of the others might end up over longer distances. I don't envisage that being the case with Thunder Moon. So if it comes up quick ground first weekend in May for Thunder Moon, I think he'll have a big say. Okay, and you're no doubt looking forward to Aintree's 3-day meeting getting underway on Thursday. Cracking 3 days. It's such a shame that crowds aren't back just in time for it, because the atmosphere there is always, it's a real buzz. Yeah, of course. I mean, it was very noticeable being at Cheltenham this year. I was lucky enough to be one of the ones working there this year, and you know, it was very hollow watching the Gold Cup out in front of the stands with a smattering of people here and there, and you know, the odd trainer and connections, but no atmosphere really to speak of. And it'll be much the same at Aintree, won't it? Okay, we can have a few owners there, which is great, but it's just not the same, because these big days are made by the atmosphere and the buzz around the place that really you feel on the bigger days, don't you? More so than any others. So it's going to be very different, like it has been racing everywhere for the last 10 months. But you know, it's great that we've got the Grand National back. It's our marquee race, and you'd think with plenty of people at home at the moment, we might not much else to do. We might even get more people tuning in and having a few quid on. Yeah, exactly. Well, what about from a punting perspective, have you picked out anything just yet? I mean, I know we haven't got all declarations ready and available, but I know that you like to think further ahead than that, Martin. Well, if anybody read my racing I did a racing TV column when the weights came out, putting up a couple anti-post, and I put up Cloth Cap and Any Second Now, but unfortunately, you know, that's sort of been and gone, really. That was. Did you invest at the time with Cloth Cap or not? God's honest truth, I didn't back Cloth Cap, and I backed Any Second Now, and now I'm kicking myself thinking why, you know. But that, yeah, I don't want to be one of those people saying, look, I've got a ticket at 33s and there's only 10 to 1 left. But it's there in black and white. I did write a column a couple of months ago on about those two. But if I'm being honest, we're sat here now, I'll have a good look at the race on Thursday, and I might have another bet or two in there. But I have backed Any Second Now. I wouldn't put anybody off him, to be honest, because I still think he's got a great chance. And in fairness, in the case of both horses, Cloth Cap's price is very, very short. Less so in the case of Any Second Now, but at least with both of them having come out and won races subsequent, there is actually a good reason for their prices to have shortened, if that makes sense. You know, they weren't going to stand still. They've proven that they're in really good form going to Aintree this year, so there's good reason for them to be to have shortened up. And if you thought the positives were there as I did previously, then it's even more positive now. So any second now, I think would be very high on my list. You know, he's still available at double figure odds, I think, with a few bookmakers at the moment, and I certainly expect a big run from him.
Yeah, I was reading an article from Secret Reprieve's trainer this morning. Obviously very hopeful, having won a Welsh national, but the stats will say a 7-year-old can't win, and obviously he's got to get in as well. He needs 3 to come out, but I one day the stats it'll go against the grain, and it will happen. He's an interesting horse, I thought.
Of course he is, and he's an improver. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know the honest answer to this, but how many horses of his age have won the Welsh national? Probably not many. You know, so you do get every now and again, you know, the trends are there to be broken, aren't they, a little bit? And the national is a very different race these days to what it was 20-30 years ago as well. Fences are that bit easier, aren't they? You know, they're not as stiff. They don't take maybe quite as much getting round. The track doesn't take quite as much getting round as it did back in the olden days. So things have changed for the national. It is a different race. It's a different test than it used to be. So perhaps the younger brigade have got a little bit more of a chance. Lovely, thank you. Are you heading up to Enquiry? Are you working there any of the 3 days? I am there Thursday and Saturday, so I will look forward to it. Yeah, I'm working Saturday morning. I think I'll hang back and make sure I'm there for the national. Good stuff. And you're off to Pontefract this afternoon. Best of luck, and many thanks as always. Thanks, Emma. Cheers.